Good evening and welcome to the Daily News Roundup. I am Abigail Smythe. Among the stories in this evening's newscast, police make major breakthrough in stolen copper cable investigation. 2 suspects arrested in relation to Wednesday's robbery of several business outlets in Manchester. Police probing murder of a man whose body was found in Kendall, Manchester. Indicom to lobby for amendments to act that authorizes correctional officers to discharge their firearm at a fleeing convict. In business, motorists warned to brace for higher insurance premiums. In the region, Barbados to receive over $300 million from the IMF. Further overseas, a WNBA star Brittany Griner back on U.S. soil after being released from Russia in prisoner swap. And in sports, Brazil are out of the World Cup. Now for the news in detail. The police made a major breakthrough in their investigation into what is believed to be a coordinated effort to steal copper cable which supplies thousands across sections of the corporate area with access to internet and cable. A truck driver was intercepted on Hillcrest Avenue in St. Andrew about 1:30 Thursday morning, stealing hundreds of meters of underground cable. The action of the truck driver is believed to have resulted in the disruption of service to some customers. The cable is valued at several millions of dollars. The driver was handcuffed and taken into custody. Telecommunications company Flow has since confirmed ownership of the copper cable. Head of the St. Andrew Central Police Division, Superintendent Marlon Nesbeth, says the truck driver who was found hiding will be charged with simple larceny and malicious destruction of property. Superintendent Nesbeth adds that the police believe the driver did not act alone and will be pursuing others. Meanwhile, Vice President and General Manager of Flow, Stephen Price, says the telecommunications company is working to restore service to thousands of customers who were left affected by the cable theft. He says the latest cable theft is a significant hit to the company. Price notes that over 4 different copper cables, each carrying 52 volts of electricity, were cut. The police have arrested 2 men suspected of being involved in Wednesday's robbery of a gas station, restaurant, bar and cashpot outlet in Cross Keys, Manchester. The men were picked up on Thursday in Osborne Store, Clarendon. A firearm and a motor vehicle were also seized. Commanding officer for Manchester, Superintendent Shane McCullough, says the men are part of a syndicate of migrating criminals who have been committing a spate of robberies in the parish. The senior cop have also disclosed that residents of the parish have been collaborating with criminals migrating from Clarendon and other areas. Noting that the criminals are strategic, Superintendent McCullough says they have been taking advantage of some areas that are difficult to police. He highlights that Manchester is caught between several states of emergency, so it is expected that criminals will migrate into the parish. While the Manchester police have increased their cross-border collaboration with Clarendon and St. Anne, Superintendent McCullough says some slip roads and mining routes pose a challenge for the police to continuously patrol. He, however, notes that the police have been putting systems in place to mitigate those issues. A man who ran, leaving behind his identification card and cell phone at the scene of a crime in Knockpatrick, Manchester on October 3, has been charged. 39-year-old Gavin Lewis of Exchange District, St. Anne, was charged with shop breaking and larceny after giving a caution statement to the police indicating his role in the crime. Reports from the Mandeville Police are that a security company responded to an alarm trigger at a petrol service station in the area and summoned the police. When the team arrived, they saw men running from the building. Identification bearing Lewis's information along with his cell phone were found at the scene. Cell site evidence put Lewis's phone at the scene during the period of the break-in. His court date is being finalized and the police are searching for the other men who escaped. Police are probing the murder of a man whose body was found Thursday afternoon with what appeared to be gunshot wounds in Kendall, Manchester. A relative named the deceased as 21-year-old Sunil Mushet, a resident of Comfort District in the parish. Preliminary reports are that about 5 p.m. residents heard loud explosions and summoned the police. Mushet's body was subsequently found 50 meters from Kendall Boulevard on a Windalco private road. Statistics from the police show that up to Monday, December 5, Manchester recorded 49 murders since the start of the year, compared to 32 for the corresponding period last year. And the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDECOM, says it will be lobbying for amendments to the Corrections Act with regards to how the security forces respond to escaping felons. INDECOM Commissioner Hugh Faulkner says this forms part of the organization's 6-goal strategic plan for the next 10 years. He states that the 1985 Corrections Act authorizes a correctional officer to discharge his firearm at a convict he believes he is incapable of preventing from escaping. Faulkner says this needs urgent review. He says while the act states that the officer must indicate to the fleeing felon that he is about to shoot, he finds it unacceptable. He argues that with the coming into advent of the 2011 constitutional amendments and the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms, this provision must be reviewed. He points to the February incident this year in which Henrique Hemmings was shot while seeking to escape from the Metcalfe Street Secure Juvenile Remand Center in Kingston. He later succumbed to his injuries. Faulkner says in their strategic vision, they have included the review by the Parliament on the response of the security forces to the fleeing felon. The Government of Canada has issued a travel advisory warning its citizens to exercise a high degree of caution in Jamaica due to the high level of violent crime. The advisory was issued despite the widespread states of emergency declared by Prime Minister Andrew Holness to curtail the surge in gang violence and murders. The travel advisory warned its citizens that a state of emergency was declared in several parishes until December 19, and that during this period, security forces have increased rights to conduct searches, seizures, and detain persons of interest. It warned citizens that if they are traveling in the affected areas, they may be subject to searches by members of the security forces. The Canadian government said violent crime, including armed robbery and murder, is a problem in large cities and tourist areas, including parts of Kingston and Montego Bay, despite the presence of police to counter criminal activities. It informed citizens that the availability of firearms is widespread, and most violent drug and gang-related crimes, especially murder, involve firearms. The advisory further states that there is a risk of becoming the victim of crossfire in these areas, and that tourists are also at risk of crimes of opportunity, especially theft and robberies. Canada told its citizens that crime tends to be concentrated within what the police refer to as traditional hotspots or high-risk communities, but can take place anywhere and at any time. Cabinet is expected to sign off on the way forward for the thousands of outstanding traffic tickets owed by operators of public passenger vehicles, PPVs. PPV operators have been calling for a payment plan to allow them to clear millions of dollars in outstanding traffic tickets, and recently staged 2 days of protest to press the government on a solution. Transport Minister Audley Shaw says he will take a proposal to Cabinet on Monday for sign-off on the final strategy in relation to the outstanding tickets. He says the formula that will be arrived at will maintain the viability of the sector and avoid any possible collapse. He explains that the issue is not just about money, but the safety of the people. Minister Shaw adds that the solution will give those with outstanding tickets time to settle them without losing their license. In the meantime, operators of public passenger vehicles will soon be required to undergo a process of certification to be able to ply their trade. Minister Shaw states that it is important that all owners and drivers of public passenger vehicles are certified. More than 24,000 students are enrolled in the Sixth Form Pathways program. The 24,238 students are registered in 167 secondary schools and 42 tertiary or post-secondary institutions. After being piloted in 2019, the Sixth Form Pathways or 7-year high school program was launched in September 2020 with the aim of having students leave schools with either an occupational associate degree, accredited associate degree, Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Examination, CAPE subjects, a CAPE associate degree, or National Vocational Skills qualification. Minister of Education and Youth Favour Williams says for decades, Sixth Form was restricted to only a few students, but now the Sixth Form Pathways program ensures students are employable and are able to develop personally and professionally with career guidance. Minister Williams believes the program will bring hope for many who would have graduated grade 11 with reduced opportunities. She says it will equip them with more interpersonal and problem-solving skills, better communication, critical thinking, and conflict resolution skills, as well as provide them with increased entrepreneurship and business development. This fiscal year, the government is investing approximately $1.5 billion for grants for operations, staffing, materials, among other provisions for secondary schools to include exam subsidy for the Sixth Form Pathways program. In business news, motorists are being told to brace for higher insurance premiums. Director of the Insurance Association of Jamaica and Managing Director of BCIC, Peter Levy, says with the rising cost for spare parts and auto repairs, insurers have had to bump up premiums to be able to pay claims. He says supply chain issues as well as the ongoing computer chip shortage have contributed to increased costs of vehicle repairs. However, he notes that those increases could be temporary, leveling out as supply chains streamline. In the meantime, Managing Director responsible for the Caribbean at Aon Insurance, Hugh Barbanel, argues that the cost of local insurance has to be increased or the country risks losing support from reinsurers. In the region, Barbados is set to receive $302 million from the International Monetary Fund IMF across two programs that have been approved by the Executive Board of the Washington-based financier. Approval for the programs, a 36-month extended fund facility, EFF, with planned total disbursement of $189 million and a resilience and sustainability facility, RSF, valued at $113 million, came on Wednesday, just over 2 months after the deals were recommended by the IMF staff. Barbadian Prime Minister Mia Mottley told her country earlier this year that she would pursue a new EFF with the IMF after the last program. That program ended on September 30. Also, during September, Barbados became the first country to reach a staff-level agreement to access the RSF, which was set up by the IMF in April. Costa Rica last month was, however, the first to actually receive a loan from the RSF facility. And on the international scene, WNBA star Brittany Griner is back on U.S. soil after being released from a Russian jail in a prisoner swap for convicted arms dealer Victor Bout. Brittany Griner returned to the United States early Friday after being freed in the high-profile prisoner exchange following nearly 10 months in detention in Russia. Griner was arrested at a Moscow airport in February when customs officials found vape canisters with cannabis oil in her luggage. She pleaded guilty in July but still faced a trial because admitting guilt in Russia's judicial system does not automatically end a case. She was sentenced to 9 years and had been transferred to a penal colony in November. She acknowledged in court that she possessed the canisters but said she had no criminal intent and that their presence in her luggage was due to hasty packing. Russian President Vladimir Putin addressed the prisoner exchange on Friday, saying more U.S.-Russian exchanges are possible. And in sports news, Brazil are out of the World Cup after being beaten by Croatia 4-2 in a penalty shootout. After a tense 90 minutes, Brazil thought they had won it when Neymar scored a beauty at the end of the first half of extra time, but Bruno Petkovic popped up in the 117th minute to send the game to penalty kicks. Croatia now move on to the semi-final. And that's it for your news roundup for today and for this week. I'm Abigail Smythe. Have a fantastic weekend and see you next time.